How's going, guys? Welcome to the channel. In this video we are gonna see, what if Naruto got neglected and became the last Garuda-built harem? Huge shout out to Wolfay Dragoone for this story. If you wants to see awesome fanfiction like this, don't forget to subscribe. Now let's get into the video. It was a cold day in Konoha. People were all preparing for the celebration. Tomorrow would be 7 years since the defeat of the nine-tailed fox. It was a difficult battle, but in the end the fourth Hokage managed to beal the beast away. He revealed that he had sealed the beast in his newborn son, Naruto Namikaze. We then see in the backyard of a fairly large house, not a mansion, and see a 7-year-old girl with violet eyes and long red hair running up to a fairly tall man with blue eyes and spiky blonde hair. Daddy, I did it, I hit the target, she said. That's good, soon you'll be as strong as me, said the blonde. Yeah, maybe you'll even achieve my dream of being the first female Hokage, said a tall redhead with a D-cup bust that looked like an older version of the girl. This was Minato Namikaze, Kushina Namikaze, and Natsumi Namikaze. It would have looked like the perfect family if it hadn't been for the boy looking at them through the trees. This boy is Naruto Namikaze, or as he prefers to be called, Naruto Uchiha. You see, his family started to train his sister early in the art of the ninja and didn't pay much attention to Naruto. It wasn't that they couldn't train him, but what would be the point considering he could never be a ninja? That was caused by a group of civilians on the council getting a petition that he couldn't be a ninja in case he lost control of his tenant's chakra. However, in truth, they just wanted to keep him weak to get what they thought was revenge on the QB by hurting Naruto. Of course, Minato could have overridden it, but he didn't. And so no matter what, he couldn't be trained and ended up being ignored in favor of his sister. It was neglect based on a lie. Naruto wasn't the Jinchuriki his sister was. Of course Naruto could not tell anyone that because who would believe him about the lie? Naruto had no idea why Minato lied, but he didn't care. He hated Minato with a passion. What a group of arrogant pricks, he thought. As he was up there watching them train, he thought about the one group of people he could truly call family, the Uchiha clan. See, many people were angry to downright hostile with the Uchiha since it was common knowledge that Madara had once controlled the Kyuubi, causing many to believe the Uchiha were behind the attack. One of these Uchiha saw Naruto getting beat in an alley, so decided to help. Flashback begin. Please stop, cried a little 4-year-old boy. We won't stop till you're dead. Yeah, you deserve this, monster. What is going on here, said a fairly tall teenager with raven hair and blood-red eyes with 3 tomo in each eye. We were just teaching this monster who is boss around here, shouted a civilian. Well, the only monsters I see are a group of grown men and women beating a child, the teenager said while looking at Naruto. Now you best be leaving before I arrest you for child abuse, he said while clicking his ninjato out of its sheath. The civilians soon cleared out, but not before shouting, of course the Uchiha side with the demon, they probably wanted to regain its power to rule the village. Shaking his head, the teenager turned to Naruto, who asked, what is your name? The teenager smiled and answered, Itachi Uchiha. Flashback, and after that Itachi took Naruto to meet his family, and it was love at first sight. Fugaku loved his resolve to not give in despite the beatings. Mikoto loved his adorable whisker marks and fun-loving personality. Sasuke saw him and became fast friends with him to the point they consider each other brothers in all but blood. As he thought about his true family, he had to wonder, it's our birthday tomorrow, I wonder if they will finally name Natsumi clan heir. As he thought this, he jumped off from the tree and headed to his room in the place he was forced to live. He usually stayed with the Uchiha, but with his birthday coming up he didn't want them to get in trouble because of him. The next day, it was nothing short of a spectacular at the Namikaze household, with clans from all over Konoha celebrating the birthday of the Namikaze princess. While Minato and the other Namikaze were mingling, Naruto was in the corner with the Uchiha receiving gifts such as a scroll for the Shadow Clone Jutsu and a t-shirt with the Uchiha clan symbol on it. Now, before Natsumi opens her presents, I would like to make an announcement, Minato said while standing to Natsumi's right. I would like to announce that I shall be naming Natsumi the Uzumaki and Namikaze clan heir, and shall also train her personally to take my place as Hokage. Meanwhile, with the dad of our favorite lazy genius, Shikaka Nara sighed as he began searching the party for Naruto. He was one of only 2 clan heads that truly cared for Naruto, the 2 being him and Tsum, though for very different reasons. Some loved him because she was one of the few that knew Kushina was a Jinchuriki and as such saw him as an innocent little boy. Her and the Inuzuka clan tried multiple times to take Naruto from Minato and Kushina, going so far as to compile evidence of neglect. However, before she could go that far, the civilians told her if her evidence went public that they would isolate the Inuzuka. The Inuzuka, despite being a ninja clan, still needed extra funding from their clinics to help support their dogs. She had no choice but to back down, but she kept the evidence in case she ever had the opportunity to use it. Shikaku, however, liked Naruto because in his mind he could be one of the village's greatest assets. He, like many other Nara males, was a lazy genius and as such saw Naruto as a powerful ally. He tried to take him in but was stopped by his two friends and finding it too troublesome to argue with them. He didn't agree with the civilians as he saw everything they did to Naruto was making him start to hate Konoha and knew that with proper training he could severely cripple them. In short, he wanted him as a friend rather than an enemy. As he searched the party, he caught himself thinking, what were they thinking? If this causes him to go into a fit of rage, he could lose control of his tenant and destroy the village. As he thought that, he caught a glimpse of blonde hair with the Uchiha. Much like with Naruto, Shikaku knew that the Uchiha were innocent even though some say otherwise. So it seems that he is finally with a true family, he thought with a smile. He was glad that he at least had someone that could stand by him and the civilians not bother, at the very least, because that would prevent him from going crazy and unleashing the Kyuubi. As the party died down and people left, a mop of blonde hair was seen going with the Uchiha. 1 week later. It had been a week since the party and much had changed, including one of the elders of the council, Danzo Shimura, died after trying to hypnotize the Uchiha to starting a coup. It was lucky that Shursui Uchiha was able to see through it and managed to yank the bandages off his eyes and arm, revealing Sharingan stolen from Uchiha that died within the village. As the council investigated the Uchiha compound, Fugaku hid Naruto so that the Hokage wouldn't get curious. As of tonight, the investigation ended and we see Fugaku, Mikoto, Itachi, Sasuke, and Naruto all gathered around a dinner table. As they were sitting there talking about practically nothing, they begin to hear a sound like static. Then Naruto seems to slowly disappear. "Mom, Dad, big bro, help me," he shouts as he fades. "Help me, Naruto," shouted Mikoto as she leapt over the table reaching for Naruto. Her fingers seem to slip through him completely as he fade away fully. "Naruto," they all shout. Mikoto then turned to Fugaku and starts shouting with tears rolling down her face, "Bring him back. Please bring him back." Fugaku looks at her and says, "I will," in response to every time he asks her to bring him back. Sasuke stares at the spot Naruto was at and then startles everybody by taking the knife on the table and cutting the palm of his hand before clenching it into a fist and said, "Naruto, no matter where you are, I will find you, my brother, even if it kills me. I swear I will never give up on you, brother." Meanwhile, halfway across the globe, Naruto slowly starts to appear, shouting, "Help, help, please help." He then looks around and notices he is in a forest and sees a young man with brown eyes and hair looking absolutely shocked, but then what the man says next makes him freeze. "Oh shit. Sorry kid, are you okay?" In the streets of Magnolia, we see a young man roughly in his mid-20s with brown hair and eyes and missing his right leg, using a cane to walk around, and a small 7-year-old child heading for building on top of a small hill. These are Ezekiel Robertson and Naruto Uchiha. "Are you sure they'll accept me? I mean, I'm not even from this continent," Naruto asked, looking at his feet. "Of course they'll accept you, I mean, look at you, you are only 7 and can use solid clone magic," said Ezekiel. You see, in the month that these two have been together, they have grown fairly close. Naruto has told him all about the Uchiha clan but has left out anything about his former family. Ezekiel told him about his guild, how he didn't have magic for so long, and about how they were destroyed by a dark guild, and he finally awoke his magic. They both shred the pain of feeling like they were inferior, Naruto because of his former family and Ezekiel due to his initial lack of magic and the need to prove themselves. During their time together, Ezekiel explained that he had teleporta magic and was working on what was essentially a seal-less Harishin. He continued to practice even after accidentally sucking Naruto in. It was during one of these test runs that he unfortunately lost his right leg. He was slowly getting it down, but he had the magic reserves of a wizard saint and no control hardly whatsoever. Hen did learn how to teleport enemy or their weapons but just couldn't control where they went. He wanted to eventually be able to teleport an opponent's weapon into his hand and then start teleporting between enemies, but he unfortunately had to wait to learn how to control his power. Naruto had learned the Shadow Clone Jutsu and had been working on control. He would have learned something else, but he just couldn't decide what to learn. He also doesn't know the secret of the Shadow Clones yet. He also learned that what was called chakra in his homeland was called magic here and had been around for centuries before Sage of 6 Paths in the elemental nations. As they arrived at the building on the hill and got close to the doors, Naruto caught himself thinking about what they had heard about this guild called Fairy Tail. They said it was a place of family where anyone can find a home. He hoped they would accept him even though stories of their power reached far and wide. As they entered, they saw what was a fairly odd sight of a fairly young girl with white hair, no noticeable bust, wearing a gothic outfit with stockings and knee-high boots, arguing with another young girl with red hair wearing a suit of armor with boot and gauntlets. Red-haired slut. Gothic bitch. At least I ain't ashamed of my body. Yeah, you're just an exhibitionist. As the two continued to bicker, Naruto could only gape at what he saw. Were these two girls arguing like children really members of the strongest guild in Fiori? Come on kid, we can't keep the guild master waiting, cried Ezekiel. Ugh. As they walked, Naruto noticed they were approaching an elderly man that appeared to be a dwarf. As they approached, Naruto could tell that this old man was stronger than he seemed, cause he had the same kind of aura as his former parents. That feeling of looking at a metaphorical, and in this case literal, sleeping giant. Yo old man, hollered Ezekiel. The old man sighed before looking at Ezekiel, then Naruto, then back to Ezekiel and said, "So this is the kid you want me to take in?" He then looked at Naruto and said with a smile, "Welcome to Fairy Tail. Where do you want your guild mark and what color?" Naruto tried to contain his joy at being accepted and said right arm in a deep crimson. Makarov smiled as he gave him his stamp and then turned to Ezekiel and said, "Sorry to hear about what happened." Ezekiel smiled and waved his hand dismissively. "Shit happens, old man, shit happens." Ezekiel then looks to Naruto and say, "Good luck kid, I hope you and your family are reunited someday." Naruto then give him a hug and says thanks for everything. 1 year later. Naruto was walking back to Fairy Tail through a forest. A place where everyone can be family, my ass, he thought. You see, in Fairy Tail he could honestly say he had only 5 friends. It wasn't because he was mean or cruel or stupid, it was because they thought he was lying about being from the mysterious island continent. They started to pick on him, and because he could only use shadow clones that would dispel after 1 good hit, they started to call him things like weak, dead last, pathetic, an embarrassment, and may other derogatory terms. As he thought about them, he thought about the one who was practically leading the charge, Mira Jane Strauss. Naruto had saw in her eyes loneliness and self-loathing much like himself. As such, he tried to be friendly to her, but she always punched him away. He could see, however, that much like his optimism was a mask, so was her anger, and couldn't find it in himself to blame her. He also thought of the 2 members slightly older than him, Natsu and Gray. While Natsu didn't really pay attention to him because he thought he wasn't that strong, Gray was outright evil, almost as mean as Mira Jane herself. As he thought of the guild, his thoughts drifted to his friends. His first friend, Levi, became close to him because she was the first to believe him. She was a bookworm and said she could see no indication of any fiction or falsehood in his statements. She always asked about the culture and history of his homeland, and eventually he even told her of his former family. When he told her about his childhood, she cried and cried before giving him a hug and saying, "No matter what, know that your big sister Levi will stand with you." He then thought of Mikao. He, like Levi, had believed him and had essentially took the place of a father or uncle figure in Naruto's life. He stood up to the rest of the guild for him even though he was one of the weaker members. He then thought of Gildarts. Gildarts was the strongest man in Fairy Tail and had took the place of the crazy uncle in his life. Even though he was gone for weeks at a time, they had grown close enough for Gildarts to promise to teach him crash magic when he get older. Naruto couldn't wait to learn from the master. His thoughts then drifted to Gildarts' daughter, Kana Alberona. They had seen each other and could tell that the other was keeping secrets. After sharing their secrets, they had grown into real close friends to the point that Naruto could honestly call her his best friend. One day she had started to call him names like all the rest, but then she said Mira Jane had told her it was just a game since they couldn't include him in the guild-wide brawl due to lack of combat magic. Naruto was faced with a choice to either tell her the truth and isolate her from most of the guild or to go along with the lie. He chose to bite the bullet so she didn't have to isolate herself for him. He then thought of poor Lyusica. She, like Naruto and Mira Jane, had a mask and constantly tried to isolate herself from most people. Naruto saw through her mask and managed to get in close to her, even calling her granny poorly. He also began to wonder about Ezekiel. He had heard from him through letters and had kept close touch till Ezekiel said he was going to do something and wouldn't be able to send letters for a while. That was 6 months ago. As he was thinking, he heard a group of bandits. "We got a real pretty one today. Yeah, she seems feisty to has been tossin' all around in her sleep." Naruto got close and saw that the girl that always argued with Mira Jane, Urza, was captured. He quickly made a dozen clones and sent some to pick up rocks. After they came back, he started his plan. "Hey, you," said one of the clones as it and about half a dozen other clones started throwing rocks at the bandits. "Hey, a clone mage," shouted one of the bandits. "Let's get him." The bandits that charged the clones with intent to kill. While they were distracted, the real Naruto snuck into the camp and had picked up Urza bridal style. Unknown to him, Urza started to smile and snuggle into him, finding his presence comforting. As he began to make a run for it, one bandit turned around and shouted he's getting away before charging up his hand with magic and firing a lightning bolt at Naruto's back. When it hit, Naruto could only grit his teeth in pain and continue walking as several other clones appeared from the trees to distract the bandits. Naruto decided to quickly head to the closest safe haven he knew of, poor Lyusica's house. Later, in the guild's infirmary, poor Lyusica could only look in pride at what the child she considered a grandchild had done. Even despite all he went through, he kept a kind heart, and poor Lyusica couldn't be more proud. Urza's would were minor. She appeared to have been exhausted before the bandits got to her. Naruto, however, was in pretty bad shape, and all she could do was close the wound what she could, put pressure to staunch the bleeding, and pray. It was then Naruto's eyes began to open. "Hey Gran, what's up?" Poor Lyusica then began to tell him about the extent of his and Urza's injuries. After they were finished, Urza began to stir. "What happened?" she asked, so poor Lyusica told her about her injuries and how Naruto had saved her. As poor Lyusica told her this, Urza couldn't help but remember how she had been sent to deal with a monster in the woods. She had defeated it, but it had been a hard fight and she had been in a rush to get back home, so that must have been when they attacked. When the story was finished, she was trying to figure out how to put a lid on it if it got out. It was then that she glared at Naruto. She doesn't realize he is the one that saved her, partially due to anger and partially due to drugs. "You will tell no one of this, understand?" But he stuttered out. However, Urza took his lack of a straight answer as defiance and walked over and flipped his mattress and him into the floor with the mattress on top. "No one understands," she said as she walked out. "Good." Poor Lyusica could only gape before rushing to Naruto. "Oh no, the impact reopened the wound," she thought. "Mikao, Wakaba, get in here, I need help," she shouted. As the two walked into the room, they could only gasp. "I'm alright Granny, don't worry," said Naruto with a smile broke their hearts. It wasn't the wound or the pool of blood forming that told them that he is in pain, but the tears that ran down his face, all while he continued to smile. "I can't let this happen again," she thought. "Mikao, Wakaba, when you get him set on the bed, come with me to speak with Makarov." Later, in Makarov's office, poor Lyusica had just told Makarov what happened and he didn't believe her in the slightest. "If you don't believe me, then come with me to the infirmary," she said. "I think I will," Makarov replied. When they opened the door, they were greeted with a horrible sight. "Oh no," said poor Lyusica. The sight that would haunt Makarov's nightmares: a cot covered in blood with a pool of blood right beside it with a trail of blood, like he had dragged himself to the window with Naruto nowhere in sight. After seeing the state of the infirmary, Makarov runs out to get the guild together. "Alright you brats, we have an emergency, so listen up," he hollered as he reached the edge of the balcony. "Naruto was gravely injured and left the infirmary. You need to find him before he dies of blood loss." "Why would we risk ourselves for that, shrimp?" said Gray. "Ha, yeah, that dead last couldn't even take a pinprick, so if we're lucky he is already dead," said Mira Jane as the guild started laughing. "Oh no, this is my fault," thought a fairly young brown-haired girl. Levi and Mikao were livid at the blatant disrespect toward their friend, and as they were about to speak up, the bells of the town started to ring. This will be good, they both thought. As they thought this, the guild doors opened to reveal a middle-aged man with orange hair and a fair bit of stubble walked in. "I'm back from a successful mission," said the man. This was Gildarts, also known as Fairy Tail's strongest mage. Makarov froze. Not only did the guild just show complete disregard for their own, but now Gildarts, who thought of Naruto as a son, will see just how far they have fallen. "Hey Gildarts over here," shouted Levi. "Hey Levi, what's going on? Is Naruto causing any trouble?" he asked with a smile. As he asked that question, Makarov paled as Levi whispered in Gildarts' ear what happened. As she told him, the pressure in the room seemed to increase while a white aura could be seen surrounding Gildarts. However, one little idiot seemed to ignore these signs of a very pissed off Gildarts. "Hey, you're Gildarts, right? The strongest in the guild, right?" asked Natsu. When Gildarts just stood there unmoving, Natsu decided to see if it was really Gildarts the only way he knew how. "Fight me," he said as he charged at him with his fist on fire, but Gildarts merely looked at him, and he was sent flying away. Most of the guild was in shock. They knew Gildarts' crash magic could be used as a blast or through his limbs, but he always preferred limbs because it was easier to control. To see him just stand there and use the blast meant one of two things. One, he didn't feel like using any real effort, or two, he is so pissed off that if he used it through his limbs it could potentially kill him. Given the pressure in the room, they all guessed it was option 2. "Makarov, get down here," said Gildarts in a cold enough tone to freeze even Mira in her tracks. "Yes?" Makarov asked after jumping down. "Is what they say true?" Makarov swallowed the spit and answered while sweating yes. Gildarts then looks at the guild and says, "Alright, listen up, we are going to find Naruto, and anyone who has a problem with that, or if you stop searching before you find him, will have to deal with me. Got it? But why would we risk ourselves for that loser?" "Yeah, I don't get why you're so upset, Gildarts. You should be happy that that loser can't embarrass us anymore." As more statements began to be made, they died in their throats as Gildarts' white aura seemed to get even more powerful. "Is this the guild that is supposed to treat everyone as family? How far have you fallen?" he said. "You have until sundown. If he ain't back by then, there will be hell to pay, understand?" "Yes sir," they all said in sheer pant-shitting horror. Meanwhile in the forest, Naruto is seen dragging himself and barely conscious. Damn it. Slowly a multicolor aura of gold, orange and crimson red began to form around him. "Damn it, why can't I just get away from those assholes that want me dead?" he said. He started to scream in frustration as the aura began to damage and set fire to the forest around him before losing conscious. Just a little south of the forest, we see a man with glowing red and gold hair with orange stripes stop as he felt a surge of power. "Can this be?" he thought as he began to head into the forest. When he got to the clearing with Naruto, he could see the forest slowly burning around this child's unconscious body. "It is as I thought," he found himself thinking. As he stood next to his body wondering if he should do what he was thinking, he noticed a handful of energy signatures heading toward them from where Naruto dragged himself from. "Whoever they are, it looks like he was trying to get away," he thought, sighing. "Okay kid, looks like you are going with me," he said as he disappeared in a wisp of smoke. With Fairy Tail's group. As the group consisting of just Levi, Urza Macau and the brown-haired girl from earlier approached the clearing, they started to feel worried, like they wouldn't like what they find. When they entered the clearing, they noticed the small puddle of blood indicating that Naruto stopped here, but that was the end of the trail. As they looked around, they noticed all the fire and destruction surrounding them. "This is bad," said Levi. "Yeah, but he didn't die here, so we have to keep searching," said the brown-haired girl. "I mean, look, there isn't a body." "Listen Kana, this is where the trail ends, and as big as this forest is, Naruto could have used a clone here and be impossible to find by now," said Macau. "We'll check all the immediate area before heading back in case he passed out, but if Naruto doesn't want us to find him, he probably won't be found, just like when he practices his art of ninja whatever," he thought. "I won't ever stop searching," thought Kana. And so an obsession is born. At least she won't stalk him. In a parallel world, a milky-eyed girl with pale skin sneezed. "Oh my beloved Naruto," she thought while peeking around the corner at a blonde wearing an orange jumpsuit that might as well have a bullseye on it. Back with Naruto, we see our favorite blonde kid laying on top of a mountain slowly waking up. "What happened?" "I see you're up," said the guy who saved him. "Who are you?" asked Naruto. "I am Ho-Oh and I am a," he said as he started changing into a bird with gold and red flames with orange highlights that looked to be wearing a crown of fire phoenix. The king of fire phoenixes, to be precise. "Why did you save me?" asked Naruto. "Because you have the power of a phoenix inside you." "Power of a phoenix?" Naruto asked. Yes, you see, phoenix, dragon, even certain other monsters were created when certain people grew so hungry for power that they forcibly altered their bodies with magic to get stronger. Oh, he said, well, why are you all alone? I am the last of my kind. Oh, sorry to bring it up, said Naruto. Don't worry, I have found someone to continue our legacy. Who, said Naruto? Sweet, how do we get started, said Naruto. First you have to die. 6 years ago. Just after Naruto left, Minato was sitting in his office doing paperwork when a man with long white hair appeared in his window. Hey, brat, what are you doing? He asked with a smile. Just some paperwork. Anyway, what brings you here, pervy sage? Minato replied with a smile. The prophecy has changed, he said with a serious expression. Explain, Jiraiya, Minato said while straightening himself out. It now says that a child born of 2 great powers shall be raised by the cursed. A man that shall be able to walk around the world shall give the one born with the heart of the phoenix the strength of the eyes of dying light, and that when the final light fades the world shall be either saved or destroyed. The now named Jiraiya explained. What does this mean? Minato asked. I don't know, but what I do know is that this means Natsumi can't be the child of prophecy, that it must be this man who can walk around the world or the one with the heart of the phoenix. Jiraiya said. So that means there is a chance that Naruto is the child of prophecy, Minato said with a smile. Of course, what other man could walk around the world with a single step than your son? Jiraiya exclaimed. This means we can finally start his training, Minato said while remembering when a 4-year-old Naruto used to ask for training only to be told his sister needed it more. Of course, I mean, who wouldn't want to learn from the Hokage, said Jiraiya. With a farewell to Jiraiya, Minato rushed home with a smile on his face thinking of how he was going to train his son. Namikaze's household. We see Kushina washing dishes with a small smile on her face when she suddenly hears the door. Welcome home, honey, she says, greeting her husband. Good to be home, he says. Hey, Kushi. Yes, Minato. I've been thinking that it is finally time we include Naruto in our family training session, he says. Kushina frowns as she thinks of all the trouble and pranks that Naruto causes. Funny, I haven't heard anyone mention him for a while now. He must be planning something big. Are you sure, Minato? I mean, you have heard about all the pranks he causes, right? Yeah, I've been thinking that he might just be trying to get our attention cause we started to train Natsumi, Minato said. Kushina's frown deepened when she thought of how they had to say Naruto was the human sacrifice instead of Natsumi. Well, at least people seem to treat him pretty good, she thought ignorantly. Okay, Minato, I'm sure he will love it, she said with a smile. Natsumi, Naruto, get down here, we have a surprise for you, Minato hollered. After a few short moments we see a little 8-year-old girl with red hair. Yes, Dad, she asks. Natsumi, where is your brother? Minato asks with a frown. Natsumi begins to scowl and says, I don't know and I don't care. All he ever seems to do is pull stupid pranks on my friends. What do you mean you don't know? Asked Minato in concern. I mean, I haven't seen him in a couple of days, she replies. What do you mean a couple of days? Kushina asks while feeling a pit seem to open in the bottom of her stomach. I think the last time I saw him was at the party, she said with her frown deepening. Why do you ask anyway? Oh, no, Minato, we have to find him, Kushina says while tears begin to roll down her face. We will, Minato replied while inwardly freaking out at possibly losing the child of prophecy. Natsumi meanwhile was trying to figure out why her parents were freaking out about her trouble-making brother. He must have done something horrible, she concluded with her anger towards her brother rising. About 4 hours later at the council meeting room. What has the Hokage deemed so important that he would call us here for an emergency meeting? Complained one civilian council member. I don't know, said another one. Why aren't the Uchiha here? Asked Shikak. Knowing them, they are probably training their little demon to rule the village, said a third civ. Shikaku just shakes his head and decides to wait to see what the Hokage wants. After a few minutes of waiting, Minato walks in the room and takes his place at the head of the council room. I wish it didn't have to come to this, but I must ask you all as I am in dire straits, he said with a solemn expression. Have any of you seen my son? Most, if not all, the council was shocked by this. Why would you care about that demon you kicked from your clan? Said one arrogant prick of a civilian. Oh, do you want to be that one to kill it? He asked with a smile. Minato was in shock from what the civilian said. No, now why are you calling my son a demon? He protects you from the Kyuubi. Like some boy could protect us from Kyuubi. He is possessed, I tell you, possessed, said Choza. Yeah, that is the only explanation why the Hokage would excommunicate him from the clan, said Inoichi. No, I didn't know, Minato said in a small voice. Seeing the Hokage in such a position, Shikaku decided to stop this pathetic excuse of a meeting the only logical way he could think of. I saw Naruto leaving the party a month ago with the Uchiha. Thank you, Minato said in a whisper before rushing out the door with a new destination in mind. Not going to lie, heck of a place for me to stop writing and take a break. Sometimes I do really dumb things and now I have to get my brain back in the groove. Uchiha compound, Mikoto/Fugaka household. Mom, Dad, I'm home from Grandpa's, said a little girl with raven-colored hair and onyx eyes. This was Sayuri, Sasuke's twin sister, who had been spending time with her grandparents while the investigation into the Uchiha clan's graves being robbed. What Sayuri saw shocked her. There her mom was sitting on the couch with tear stains all over her face. Right next to her was Fugaka holding on to her, with evidence that he had been crying too, having a steely-eyed expression that would make lesser individuals cower in fear. However, the most shocking was Sasuke, who held an expression of such determination that if he told her he would move a mountain she would feel compelled to believe he could. Having never seen her family like this, she did what any child in her position would do. Mom, Dad, what's wrong? She asked, concerned for her family. He's gone, Mikoto said, sounding almost hollow, like a person who lost their will to live. Who's gone? The second Sayuri asked that question, Mikoto started to bawl her eyes out. Fugaku quickly moved to comfort her while Sasuke quickly took his sister upstairs. Closing the door, he turned to speak, and somehow his look grew even more determined. Naruto disappeared, he said. He disappeared right in front of our eyes and we couldn't do anything about it, he said while wiping tear from his eyes. He then looked her in the eye and said, I will find him no matter the cost, even if it takes my whole life. That is what family, no, that is what brothers are for. Then I'm going to help you, Sayuri said. It was there that two children obtained the drive to become some of the strongest fighters in the elemental nations. AKA island continent, land of fantasy, a fairy tale, all kinds of names it was called in Fiori. Meanwhile, with the parents of said stubborn, but intelligent, children. Fugaku was having a rough time in life right about now. First the deal with Naruto and now it brings his wife to pieces. Life really must be pissed at him for something. Just as soon as he finally calms down his wife, he heard a knock at his door. Getting up and opening it, he sees a man he once considered a brother in all but blood, but now couldn't even tell if the man truly had a soul. Fugaki, you have to help me, Minato pleaded. Have you seen my son? The second Minato said those words, Fugaku had 1,000,001 thoughts running through his head. He couldn't tell if he should be grateful now that Naruto suddenly disappeared, lest he be facing the wrath of the Hokage, or if he should wish Naruto was here so he could punch this man straight in the dick for just now deciding to care. Mikoto, however, had no such inner conflict. You son of a bitch, who do you think you are? You have no son. You made that quite clear when you named Natsumi clan heir. But I didn't understand. She cut him off, yelling in rage with tears streaming down her face. It's because of you that he was unloved for so long. It's because of you that he held so much anger. It's because of you he's gone. She then started to slowly fall to the floor with tears still streaming down her face, hiccuping and repeating the words, it's because of you. Minato winced as everything she said struck him as if it had been a physical blow. Stepping in front of his wife with a firm expression on his face, Fugaku faced the Hokage and said, leave, Minato, and don't come back. But please, do you know anything? The village leader asked, grasping at straws. If you want answers, why don't you look into your civilian council, or better yet ask some, he said before slamming the door in Minato's face. Flashback and present day. A lot has changed in the village in the past 6 years. First, Minato started to ask around for any information on Naruto. Then Tsum went public with her evidence of the civilians' corruption. Upon looking at the evidence, Minato quickly disbanded the civilian council. Kushina started to blame herself and promptly swore that she would do her best to make it up to Naruto, as a mother should. When she found out she was pregnant again, she swore she wouldn't make the same mistake twice. Upon her child being born and finding out it was a boy, she quickly decided that even if Naruto wanted to take her head, she would make sure that little Menma would be able to know his brother for who he truly is, rather than the lies people on the street had her believe. Natsumi also changed. Upon finding out that majority of stuff he was blamed for were lies, she quickly started to dig deeper into her brother's past. She then distanced herself from those people she once called friends because of finding out that Naruto never once pulled a prank on them, even though they had blamed it on him. Those people made her turn on her brother, that held her close in a thunderstorm, that had tucked her in at night when their parents were busy, and the very same brother, who despite all the verbal lashings, insults, and hatred she gave him was never once mean to her. He was a bit distant though. Rumor has it that she even started to develop a bit of a brother complex. She usually wears an orange t-shirt since, while not stealthy, was her brother's favorite color. Fugaka died shortly after on a mission. Sasuke, Itachi, and Sayuri decided after that to train till they either find Naruto or die trying. They could almost always be found on a training ground. However, no one changed as much as Mikoto. Speaking of which, with Mikoto, here we see Mikoto laying in bed with a jar full of strange fluid in her hands. A mysterious shadow is in the room with her. Are you sure he is still safe? Mikoto asks. Of course, after all they are said to treat everyone as family there, the shadow says before stepping out to reveal Ezekiel Robertson in all his one-legged glory. He better be, or I will make his childhood seem like a wet dream compared to what I do to you, Mikoto replied. Okay was Ezekiel's reply while sweating buckets. Soon my baby, Mikoto thought while placing the jar on the nightstand. Soon. The screen then zooms into the jar to reveal an onyx eye that slowly begins to turn crimson, with what looks like black flower petals surrounding the pupil. Oh boy, 2 new obsessions obtained. I can't tell whether to be jealous of him or scared for him. It has been a little over 5 years since Naruto disappeared, and the guild couldn't have changed more if it tried. The first being guild arts. He left the guild on a 100-year quest the day after they failed to find Naruto. When he stepped in just short of 3 years later, they expected him to have calmed down. When he went to the quest board and immediately left on another 100-year quest, they were shell-shocked. He had always spent about a week in town to relax and prepare for the next quest. To see him just walk in and walk out just showed the depth of his rage. Levi had quickly made it a point that should she hear Jet or Droy make fun of Naruto, she would disband Team Shadow Gear without a second thought. They quickly shut their traps, and upon talking to Levi they realized that it was possible that Naruto was telling the truth. Needless to say, they felt like shit for treating the boy that Levi saw as a little brother as nothing more than a liar. Levi also started to isolate herself from most of the guild, especially Urza and Mira Jane. Mikao started to dedicate most of his time to his little boy, partly as an excuse to not interact with the people who drove Naruto away. His little boy, Romeo, grew up curious about this Naruto character that his dad always seems to mention. Mikao started to tell him stories about how Naruto was, and Romeo started to see him as a long-lost big brother. Romeo also started to look up to Natsu because of Natsu's statement that he would bring Naruto back. Natsu, well, he is still Natsu. He swore to bring his lost guild mate home, ignoring the fact that Naruto had left of his own free will. When he and his friend Lise Anna Strauss found an egg in the forest, they thought it was a dragon egg and that it would help find Naruto. It turned out to just be a cat with wings. They named the cat Happy because he seemed to lift the atmosphere of depression that happened since Naruto left. Happy was more than willing to support Natsu in finding both Igneel and Naruto. However, such happiness didn't last long. Mira Jane was at first uncaring to the news of Naruto's disappearance. That quickly changed after her sister, Lise Anna, died on an S-rank mission. When she was mourning her sister, she noticed that something seemed to be missing, something that had always managed to bring up her spirits. It was then that she realized that Naruto had always been there when she was feeling down about something, trying to cheer her up with anything from a joke to just trying to talk to her. She had always belittled and abused him, but he just kept getting back up with his spirit unbroken, trying to make her smile. Upon realizing how much Naruto had truly begun to mean to her, as well as the knowledge that she was one of the main reasons that Naruto left, she attempted to commit suicide. Elfman, her little brother, managed to show up just before she could finish the act though. After that, Mira Jane changed. Gone was the cruel, abusive girl who got off on causing other people pain, replaced by a kind, sweet girl who wouldn't fight unless forced to. She also swore to herself that she would make it up to Naruto in any way she could, whether it be with her body, her pain, her pride, or even her life, as she believed that she deserved no less than what Naruto wanted as comeuppance. Keep in mind that they believe that Naruto is in dire straits because of them. Erza was nothing short of ashamed for her actions. She had put Naruto in grave danger just because he overheard poor Ryusuke tell her about being rescued. She doesn't realize it was Naruto who saved her yet. She, in her mind, had sullied her honor as Titania. She ended up having her magic sealed for 6 months, while she was on probation. She, much like Mira-Jane, begun to realize just how much Naruto truly tried to brighten up the guild, and how it felt colder just with him being gone. She swore to bring him back and make him feel truly welcome in the guild. She wasn't as extreme as Mira-Jane was. Gray stayed an asshole. He was just a straight-up dick and thought that Naruto lied to the guild about his home, and then played them for saps when he left, making them feel like they did something wrong. Needless to say, he got ostracized by a fair bit of guild members. Makarov had took to drinking a fair bit more alcohol. He looked for information on Naruto when he could, but he found out the Magic Council had no info on his whereabouts. Kana had become nothing short of an alcoholic. She at first had blamed herself, before turning that anger to the guild. She was furious at Mira-Jane and herself, for what Mira convinced her was a joke. She quickly isolated herself from anyone who was mean to Naruto. She slowly started to become obsessed with him as well. At first to bring him back, then trying to make it up to him for her actions, to a slight crush, until she slowly started to fantasize about her Prince Charming coming back to her. Recently Natsu brought a new member, Lucy, to the guild. At first she was ecstatic that she finally joined a guild. Then she noticed an unranked mission saying reward for any information on the whereabouts of Naruto Uchiha. She asked about it, but when she asked Kana, she got up to the mission board, took a random request and walked out. It was shortly after that Makarov took her into his office and told her that Naruto was once a member of Fairy Tail. He told her he left because of disputes with his guildmates. Before Lucy could ask about the dispute, she was kicked out of his office. We now see a boat with Gray, Natsu, Lucy, and Erza sailing away from an island. Meanwhile on said island, we see 2 shadowy figures, one with fairly long hair reaching its back, entering what looks to be a temple. "Are you sure she is here?" asked the one with long hair. "Yes, I'm sure." "Now hurry up, who knows how much time before it is too late," said the other. We then see them walk up to a pile of ice that looks like someone took a sledgehammer to it. "Okay, do your thing," said the one with short hair. We then see the one with long hair kneel down, and a magic circle begins to glow around the ice. Slowly the ice begins to turn into a woman with short black hair, seemingly in her 20s, with no clothes. What the woman stutters. "You're Milkovich, by order of the king we have come to retrieve you," said the shadow with short hair. "Hey, how about we all go out for a treat to celebrate a job well done," said the one with long hair. "Oh yes, Mr. Prince of Darkness, would you like some sprinkles with that?" said the one with short hair. "Hey, undying fishcake, how about you crawl back on top of your ramen?" "It means maelstrom," the one with short hair whined. "Excuse me, who are you?" the now named just. "Oh sorry, got a little ahead of myself," said the one with long hair. "You can call me the Crimson Slayer. And you can just call me Fairy Tail's greatest mistake," said the one with short hair. As they turned to leave the temple with Yor, the screen zooms into the right arm of the short-haired one. There we see a bright red Fairy Tail guild mark with a giant, black X through it. We zoom in to see a little Main Street cafe with 2 guys and a girl sitting at a table. The girl is obviously Yor, but the 2 guys are finally shown in their full glory. The one has crimson hair reaching just to the start of his back, and yellow eyes. He wore an orange straitjacket with the sleeves tore off so it looked like a bitchin' t-shirt. He also had a gray jacket with the collar up and a red fur, whatever the hell that thing is called. Picture the thing Don Quixote da Flamingo wore but red. He has black pants with a yellow belt buckle, black leather gloves with a red spike, and had sneakers that were yellow on top, black on bottom, with red lines all over. DG Cookies, if you can figure out where he is from. He was eating an ice cream sundae that, ironically enough, had rainbow sprinkles all over it. The other had short, spiky blonde hair. He was wearing a bright orange t-shirt with a yellow phoenix emblem, had orange sneakers, and 2 armbands on his arm. The armband on his left arm was orange with a yellow phoenix like his shirt, but the other was a dark blue with a strange red fan with a white handle covering all but the top and bottom of what appears to be a bright red tattoo. Think of the Uchiha symbol on the right armband. He also wore a bright orange baseball cap that he took off while they were eating, that typically obscured most of his face. Without it, you could plainly see his 3 whisker marks on each cheek and bright blue eyes. He was trying to eat ramen but, as you can tell from his eyebrow twitch, was being interrupted. Okay, now you have some food, tell me who in the hell you guys are exactly, Yor shouted. She was dressed in a plain white tank top with black shorts. She had been bugging both of them for answers since they freed her. Why did you search me out? She hollered, slamming her fist onto the table. The blonde one scrambled to stop his ramen from falling over. It was then he made a decision. If we told you who we were, would you please let us eat in peace, he said. Yua quickly nodded her head at a speed only possible for an anime character. The blonde one sighed. My name is Naruto Uchiha. Uchiha, that's a weird name, Yor said. She quickly lost any will to make further comments on it when the now named Naruto gave a glare and started to put out an immense amount of magic power, glowing bright yellow as he did. She felt as if his blue eyes were drilling into her soul. Note to self, don't piss this guy off or make fun of his name, she thought. I'm Koan Shinryami, said the crimson-haired one, who continued eating his ice cream without really caring about the conversation they were having. Okay, now why were you searching for me? After all, I should be considered dead, she asked. We are inspectors who work directly for the king. As a result, the Magic Council has little info on us, unlike most mages who have to give full rundown of background, powers, and connections. We were sent to find you as a result of skeptical reports from the council concerning your death. In order to figure out the truth, he sent us as his eyes and ears to find anything useful, Naruto explains with a business-like tone. Yeah, and when we heard you used iced shell, we thought we would just go see if you had any life left in ya, said Koan in a creepily cheerful tone. But iced shell is supposed to kill the caster. So how did you bring me back, Yor said. You of all people should know that isn't true. Iced shell turns the user's body into ice and uses life force to maintain itself true, but it is also considered a leeching spell. It leeches off from the magic and life force of the prisoner to help maintain its top strength. In theory, if you used it on something strong enough, you could become partially immortal by absorbing the life energy of your prisoner. We however had a bet going on whether or not you still had any life left after this much time, Naruto says. Oh, that reminds me, you owe me 50 jewels, Koan said with a massive grin on his face. Naruto grumbles as he pulls out his wallet to pay him. Why did I have to bring the bet up again, he mentally asks himself, feeling like a moron. As they sat there in silence with Yua trying to wrap her mind around what these two men had told her, they hear a ringing sound coming from Koan's pocket. As Koan pulls the object making the noise out, Yua notes that it is a communications lacrimia. Beloved, is this you? Said a woman's voice from the other end. Yes, Juvia, it's me, Koan replied. I have very bad news. Master Porla has taken a mission with intentions of starting a guild war with Fairy Tail, the now named Juvia told him. All 3 people at the table could only say one thing. What? Yes, it seems that Fairy Tail has gained one Lucy Heartfilia as a guild member, and her dad is paying quite handsomely to get her back to him, Juvia told them. Okay, Juvia will take care of it. But you might want to get out of there before we get there, Koan told her in a deathly serious tone. Understood, but where am I supposed to go, she asked. Go to the king's palace and tell the guards you are with me, Koan said. I understand, she said. I will talk to you when you get there. Talk to you later, Koan says as he hangs up. Turning to the others he says, so it seems like you will have to take her to meet the king while I deal with this mess? No, I'll go, Naruto says in a cold tone. Are you sure, Koan asks with concern heavy in his voice. You can't move towards the future, chained down by the past, Naruto says in a soft, but cold tone. Koan can only nod his head at the sage advice. Okay, so I'll take her and we'll just meet up at the castle sometime. Naruto nodded before sticking on his baseball cap, angled where it obscures his face, and disappears in a wisp of smoke. Yua could only watch in awe before her brain puts the pieces together. Wait. He said he was Fairy Tail's greatest mistake, didn't he? Yeah, let's just say that everyone must face their own demons, Koan say with a solemn expression on his face. He then turns cheerful and starts flashing her a wide grin. Now why don't we get on our way? Let's go, she says, stuttering a little and blushing from his smile. Later at the Phantom Lord's Guild Hall. We see a man with dark red hair and an evil mustache. Childish meme, maybe, but you can't deny a lot of people in series with that mustache are evil. Talking to a young man with long black hair that looks like he tried to use a rivet gun from the wrong end. Okay, so you understand the plan, said the mustached villain. Yeah, take out this Levy chick so those fairy tale worms lose their top strategist, said the man with rivets in his head. Yes, but if you encounter any of the high-class mages in fairy tale, you are to retreat. With the disappearance of Juvia, we can't afford any more losses before the main battle, said the red hair. I don't understand why you are so concerned about these worms. As it stands now, we could take them out without even trying, said the rivet man. It's not them I'm worried about, said the redhead cryptically. Streets of Magnologia that evening. We see Team Shadowgear, consisting of Jet, Droy, and Little Miss Levy herself, walking through town and just enjoying the sights. It was then that a man jumps at them. He was wearing a punk outfit, with long black hair, and piercings on his face that look like rivets. You're Levy, right? Asked the man with piercings. Why yes, Levy answers in a shaky voice. She was actually pretty startled by the man's sudden appearance and was trying to figure out what he could possibly want her for. Good, the man says, smirking before charging at her and thrusting his hand forward and turning it into a pole of iron. Levy narrowly dodges it and ends up tripping to the ground. You're the man that destroyed our guild hall, Jet hollers in outrage and realization. The name is Gajiel Redfox, Worms, the now named Gajiel says. Blinded by anger, Jet activates his speed magic only for Gajiel to activate his iron scale spell. Jet charges at him, but Gajiel manages to grab his shirt. He then holds him in place as he swings his arm back, turning it into a metal pole, and hits Jet over the head with it. The impact sends Jet flying through the air a ways and knocks him out cold. You bastard, yelled Droy, who was activating his growing magic. This causes the plants around Gajiel to grow incredibly fast before starting to wrap around him. Gajiel just continues to show his power by letting some of the plants wrap around him before turning one of his arms into a sword and cutting the plants to pieces. Before Droy has a chance to react, Gajiel quickly appears in front of him and slashes him, from shoulder to hip, causing him to lose consciousness. Walking over to Levy, who still had yet to fully recover from her earlier stumble, he grabs her roughly by the jaw. Lifting her up until she was looking him in his eyes, he said, "Is this all you have? So much for the smartest in fairy tale, you weren't even worth the effort." Deactivating his iron scales spell, he swings his arm back for a powerful punch. However, right before the blow can land, a hand grabs Gajiel's arm by the crease of his elbow and holds him mere inches from Levy's gut. Looking back on who stopped his attack, Gajiel saw a man with a baseball cap hiding his face, 2 armband, and what looks like a unique orange novelty t-shirt. You better let go, maggot, before you end up like these worms, Gajiel said with an edge clear in his voice. I will give you one warning. Stop, said the stranger. Like hell I will, Gajiel says as he lifts Levy up preparing to slam her to the ground. However, before he could do anything, he was sent FNG from a punch from the man's left arm. Looking back at where he was, he saw the man gently putting Levy on the ground. Activating his iron scales, as well as turning his arm into a sword, he come flying out of the rubble at the man. The man sees this and activates his own magic, causing his right arm to be engulfed in flames. Right as Gajiel gets close to the man, additional flames act as a jet and propel the man's fist into Gajiel's face. While at first Gajiel was confident in his ability to take the hit, that quickly disappeared as his fist melted through Gajiel's scales and sent him flying. As he picked himself off the ground, Gajiel had to analyze who he was fighting. He wasn't from fairy tale, as there have been no details about anyone like this in the guild. The closest one to being similar was Salamander, but this guy seemed far stronger than him. As he thought, he remembered the guild master's words. Deciding to take his advice, Gajiel chose to run away. He's getting away, Levy hollered. Yes, but we have more pressing matters to attend to, the man said. Walking over to Jet, he made sure he was alright. When he found out that aside from being unconscious he was alright, he moved on to Droy. After looking at the wound for a little bit, the man decided to activate his magic again. This time causing his arm to be engulfed in blue flames, and as he brought it to Joy's wound, it began to heal at a rapid pace. Finally finding her voice, Levi asks him, "Why are you helping us?" As the man turns to face her, lifts up the front of his baseball cap. As his face begins to be exposed to her, Levi couldn't keep herself from crying. Isn't that what brothers are for, to look out for their sisters? As she looks at him, with his bright blue eyes and 6 whisker marks, she could only sob out, "Naruto." She had a million questions, but Naruto quickly stopped her from voicing any of them. "Listen, big sis, I know you have questions, but you better hurry somewhere safe. Phantom Lord seems to be preparing for a guild war. It won't be safe at night right now," he says. "I promise that once the war is over, I will find you and tell you everything. But what if they ask about who saved me? What do I tell them? Plus Mikao and Kana would be ecstatic to find out about you. For now just tell them you were saved by a passing by mage," he tells her. "I will find Mikao and them later to tell them everything too." Levi thought about it for a minute before saying, "Okay, but you better not leave out anything." Naruto only nodded before pulling his hat down to obscure his face again and blending into the crowd. After the failed counterattack by Fairy Tail, Naruto could only sigh. He had hoped that Fairy Tail could beat them without his help, but instead they got sent home with their tails between their legs. Now he was forced to watch that mechanical monstrosity of a guild hall prepare to fire a cannon at Fairy Tail. As he thought about his options, he promptly said, "Curse my bleeding heart," before jumping off from the building he was watching from. Terror, that was the only way to describe how Fairy Tail felt right now. They had attacked Phantom Lord with all they had, and it had cost them their guildmaster's health. If it hadn't been for Levi managing to convince Porliusica to heal him, they were certain he would have died already. And now, at their weakest, they were facing down a mechanical monstrosity that wielded a cannon capable of killing them all in one shot. "Now prepare to die, you pathetic fairies," said the voice of the mustached man from before. "Fire the Jupiter cannon." "No, we will not fall," said Urza Scarlet. Her hair had grown and she now had a fairly big ass with slender legs, with signs of definite muscle. The rest of her body was obscured by her armor though. Adamantine armor, she shouted while being engulfed in light. As she emerged, she was covered in an armor that was intricately made with 2 halves of a shield, one on each arm. She now stood at the height of a giant and prepared to defend her home from the cannon blast. As the blast got close to the ruins of the guild, 5 birds that were made of fire appeared. They began to circle in front of the cannon blast, seemingly making a wall of fire. When the blast hit it, one of the birds instantly disappeared in a plume of smoke. Holding the blast off, 2 more went up in smoke before the blast lost energy. As the other 2 went to the ground, one of them rushed ahead before hitting the ground headfirst. When it hit, it caused a massive amount of smoke to spread around the area. As the other approached the ground, it landed where the smoke was thickest before hiding in it. They then saw a golden glow, seemingly rippling, appear, and the magic the bird possessed seemed to diminish. Then out of the smoke where the bird landed, a young man walked out wearing an orange baseball cap to hide his face. He had 2 armbands on, one that had a symbol that seemed awfully familiar to some of the guildmates, and didn't have a shirt on. He had numerous scars ranging to slashes, markings carved out on his skin, and the worst was a massive burn-like scar that seemed to cover the entirety of his back. Scars aside, he was also incredibly muscular and lean, possessing much more definition than even someone like Natsu. He then looked to the massive guild of Phantom Lord. "Jose Porla," he said, "you have attempted to wipe out a guild of Fiori, on top of starting a guild war. By order of the king you are to stop your actions this instant, or I will be forced to use more drastic measures to bring you in for trial in the king's court." "So you are the king's new investigator," the now revealed Jose Porla said. "To think I was actually worried. Look at your magic, it's barely a class, and you think you can stop me? Listen, shrimp, leave now and I will forget I saw you, cause I don't want the king sending an army after me. Stay and I will deal with you like the pathetic maggots behind you." The strange man just took a deep breath. Then he started running to the moving guild. When he started to get close to it, he shot flames of his feet and covered his hand in fire, hitting the side of the guild and melting right through it. "Who is that?" thought Urza. She then said, "We're going in as well." causing Natsu to shout out in happiness that he can kick the guy's ass who hurt his guild master. Meanwhile on the abomination, Naruto was working in overtime trying to take out as many of the guild members as he could without getting caught. If there was one thing Fugaku's stories told him, it was that a shinobi is only supposed to fight from the shadows using whatever means necessary to ensure a victory. That meant that Naruto couldn't afford to get caught and cornered by the guild master and the members. After all, he was just one man. So he was sneaking to the best of his abilities and slowly taking out the guild members one at a time. If he played his cards right, Fairy Tail might just help exhaust the guild master for him. While he may hate them, he had bigger thing to worry about at the moment. Stealthily approaching a group of guards at a door, he hides around a corner. "Fire make, blast kunai," he said, muttering under his breath, as a kunai made of fire forms in his hand. He quickly rushes out of his hiding spot and, before the guards can react, throws the kunai between them. When it lands, he promptly makes a half-ram seal, and the kunai explodes in a blast of fire with enough force to give the guards second-degree burns and knock them unconscious. Cautiously entering the room, Naruto immediately notices a blonde-haired girl tied up and gagged. As he approaches, however, a pole made of iron instantly slams down in front of him before he can get close. At the end of the pole is none other than Gajeel Red Fox, sporting a light but noticeable burn mark on his cheek. "I don't think we got to settle our fight last time. Don't think you will get away from a Dragon Slayer's rage this time, bastard," he said with a smug grin. "Oh joy, better make this quick or I might fall asleep listening to another pride-filled boast from a criminal," thought Naruto, with a sweat drop. He has heard enough monologues to almost say some of them by heart. Later with Jose Porla, majority of the fights follow canon, and they all end up trying to fight Jose Porla and failing. Jose Porla was unimpressed to say the least. Here were several of the strongest mages of Fairy Tail, and even though some of them fought two of his Element 4, he had managed to defeat them with relative ease, knocking the famed salamander completely unconscious. He could only shake his head in disappointment. These kids had such potential and yet they chose to side with a pathetic guild like Fairy Tail, a decision that would end up costing them the chance to ever reach their full potential. "It's time I finish you weaklings off. Maybe in the next life you will actually stand a chance," he said, gathering shade and darkness magic in his palms. However, before he could launch his attack, he was forced to dodge from Gajeel's unconscious body being thrown from a hallway. He looked at Gajeel and could only widen his eyes in shock. Gajeel had several third-degree burns all over his body, along with multiple bruises covering him from head to toe. He could only look for a few short moments before having to dodge a barrage of kunai and shuriken that were all made of fire coming from the opposite direction Gajeel came from. "Damn, I was hoping to take you out in one hit," the man from earlier said, only now he was missing his hat. Without it, his sky-blue eyes and bright blonde hair was exposed, but his most notable trait was 3 whisker marks on each cheek. Impossible, there is no way that is him," thought Urza. After all, he would only be 14, but this guy looks like he is almost 20 or older. "There's no way that's the runt," thought Gray. "I mean, before that little pipsqueak could barely be called a man, let alone a mage. It looks like I will actually have to take this seriously," the man said while reaching for his blue armband. "Like I would let you get away with whatever you are planning, maggot," Jose said while once again charging up his magic. "Aren't you forgetting something?" the man said with a smirk. Before he had time to analyze what the man said, Jose was forced to once again cancel his attack to dodge an assault from a carbon copy of the man but with notably less magic power. As he quickly lashed out with a blast of darkness magic, the clone dispersed into smoke. As Jose turned around to once again face the man, he was instantly blown away at the immense magical power that was now emanating from him. The man stood there with a golden magic circle, rippling like water, behind him and his blue armband in his hand. As he stood there, the armband began to turn into particles of golden light. However, not only was his magic now immense, it revealed a Fairy Tail Guild mark on his right arm with a big black X through it. The Fairy Tail members were stunned. "Naruto, is that really you?" thought Urza, who had a sinking feeling in her gut upon seeing the black X. Gray couldn't even form a coherent thought upon seeing the mark. This magic power. "It's equal, no, greater than mine," thought Jose Porla, before looking at the crossed-out guild mark. So you have a problem with the fairies too. Well, how about you turn the other way, and I make it worth your while? He said, somehow forgetting that he already tried a similar tactic. As tempting as that would be, you have not only broke the law but also have put innocent civilians in danger because of your actions. I will not hesitate to do what needs to be done even if it means that I have to keep these bastards alive another day, Naruto said. While he had his issues with Fairy Tail, he would never willingly allow innocent people to be hurt by mindless hatred like he was. Besides, why would I give up when I have the upper hand? He then makes a yanking motion with his hand, revealing strings made of magic, and the fire-make items he created before go flying at Jose Porla yet again. He once again manages to dodge them, but one manages to get stuck in his right arm. You missed, Jose Porla said with a grin. If all he can do is keep throwing those around, then I have this as good as one. Who said I was aiming to hit you? He said with a massive grin. He then make a half-ram sign. Fire make, blast, smoke screen. All of the fire tool around Jose Porla, including the one in his arm, blew up in a massive plume of smoke. This made it so that no one could really see 2 foot in front of them. Looking at his wounded arm, Jose noted that aside from the damage from piercing him and cauterizing the wound, the explosion did no real damage. He didn't get much time to think though, before a flaming fist came straight for his face. He quickly dodged it, but then a flaming kick came from behind for his legs. He was about to react before once again dodging a fist, only this one came for his face. Just before he could muster any magic to counterattack, another fist lodged itself into his side. This went on for a little bit, with him being unable to see or defend against his attackers. He finally managed to get an opening large enough for him to gather his magic. Whirlwind of suffering, he said, creating a vortex with his shade magic that looked like a tornado of souls, to clear the area and let him see his opponent. His attack worked, and even managed to force them back a little bit. He then noticed that there were now 5 of the man. Quickly gathering his magic before they could regain their bearings completely, he created several shades that went to different parts of the battlefield before turning into ghostly ethereal buildings. Necropolis, he shouts, with the buildings beginning to glow with an incredible amount of magic power before exploding and leveling almost all of the battlefield. Shit, I can usually do 3 of those a day, but those fairy tale brats exhausted me enough that I would be lucky to use it even once more, he thought in a panic. His worries only increase when Naruto walks out with only a little bit of dirt on him. Man, I must admit I didn't think you would counter my clones so easily. Ah well, just means I will have to stop playing around. Naruto said. He had already made up his mind. If he drawed this out any longer it would result in Porla's shades on the ground getting more innocent bystanders caught in the battle. Damn, I was hoping to not have to reveal any of these techniques, but looks like I don't have a choice. I will have to finish this in one hit to minimize bloodshed, so I can't afford to fuck this up. Thought Naruto. Quickly rushing forward, Naruto punches Jose upward. He then proceeds to use his fire to boost him higher and higher, before causing Jose to fly through the ceiling. Naruto then uses his fire as a jet to propel him after Jose, before hitting him higher and higher yet again. Jose just barely manages to regain his bearing, if only slightly, and fires a blast of magic at Naruto, who was heading towards him. However, before his attacks land, he sees Naruto turn into a cloud of smoke and in his place is a piece of rubble. Another type of clone, Jose thought in confusion. It was short-lived however, as Naruto appears behind him, glowing red magic circle behind him, with his fist encased in flames. Fire Phoenix, Inferno Drill, Naruto shouted before slamming his fist into Jose's side. As they plummet to the ground, Naruto not only uses his flames to make them go faster but also to cause them to spin faster and faster. When they finally land in the battlefield in Phantom Lord's Guild Hall, Jose hits first and creates a massive spiral crater. A massive spiral of fire erupts from the crater, causing the temperature around it to skyrocket. Out of the crater, to the surprise of the still conscious Fairy Tail members, is a Naruto who looks none the worse for wear. Naruto said. She didn't get to say much more before Naruto rushed over and knocked her out. Gray was about to yell before Naruto quickly went and did the same to him. He then sighed before beginning to toss all the unconscious fairies over his shoulder. He paused after filling up one arm before reaching out and a golden ripple appearing around his hand, and once it disappeared he had his hat in his hand before putting it on, hiding his face once again. He then picked up the rest before disappearing in a burst of speed. Outside/remnants of Fairy Tail Guild. Makarov was feeling better. He had been taken out after their failed counterattack. But luckily one of the S-class mages, Mystigan, had gathered up magic power to help accelerate his healing. However, by the time he was healed up enough to aid in the battle, it was already over. All he even knew about how the battle ended was that the same person who supposedly helped Levi had charged at Phantom Lord's Guild Hall and had managed to bust end. Then after a little while they all felt a massive surge of magic. Shortly before they all saw a giant pillar of fire emerge from the mecha monstrosity. He had many questions but no real answers. He was surprised to see a man suddenly appear just a ways in front of him. He couldn't make out any facial feature, even if he tried, but he was more focused on the numerous scars than were all over the man's body. Some looked like they were at most only a year or two old, but the rest looked to have been inflicted at least a decade ago, with them have become distorted with the man's growth to adulthood. Makarov honestly wouldn't have known about how scars distorted as people grow older if it hadn't been that as a guild master he had seen numerous children get scars when messing around with unstable spells. And if what the young mages said is to be believed, then all the scars on the man's front pale in comparison to the large one on his back. It was honestly a wonder how even a mage could have survived whatever hell this man had went through. "Thank you, go dash," Makarov began before the man disappeared in a plume of black smoke, leaving only the member of the guild that fought in Phantom Lord's Hall on the ground. A short while away, forest. Naruto appeared in a puff of smoke, panting lightly. It was times like this he was grateful that he paid attention to Shursui when he was with Itachi. He managed to get away from Fairy Tail without any major confrontation. Add to the fact that only 2 people saw his face, odds are that most people will discard the thought it was him, and with Levi knowing the truth she can actively discourage the idea, so his identity was mostly safe. Naruto attributed his easy escape to Shursui. After all, he was the one who explained the basics of Shunsin to Naruto. In fact, Naruto had learned that even though shinobi teach that substitution is one of the basics, Shunsin is in truth far simpler being compared to Tsunade's legendary strength. Both were derived from the simple usage of chakra to strengthen the body, but requiring immense level of control, dedication, and mastery over the technique before being very useful in active combat. Also, both techniques are pretty much something that every shinobi would learn pretty much on accident, hence why the academy figured might as well teach them something they wouldn't learn without some form of assistance such as a teacher or scroll. As Naruto was going over these seemingly random thoughts, he arrived at a house. Stealing his nerve, he knocked on the door. "Don't you humans know when to quit? I just healed dash." Poorly Yusuka started before stopping her rant completely upon seeing Naruto. "Naruto," she exclaimed happily before hitting him hard over the head with a broom. "What the hell were you thinking wandering off like you were? I thought you were dead, no note, no letters, nothing." Her voice was angry, but Naruto could easily see the tears in her eyes. "I am so sorry, Granny. I was just so upset that I didn't think about it," Naruto said. He would have said more, but poor Yusuka waved him off. "I understand," she said with a loud sigh. "Besides, I have someone else who wants to talk to you," she said before turning and revealing Levi sitting on her couch. Naruto could only stare surprised. "How did you get here so fast?" She blushed a little. "When you entered their guild hall, I rushed over here cause I knew you wouldn't stick around Fairy Tail longer than you had to, and poor Yusuka is someone I could almost bet on you visiting." Naruto could only blush and scratch the back of his neck with a sheepish grin at being so easily read. "Now why don't you start by telling us what you have been doing the past few years?" said poor Yusuka. "Well, I got a job as an investigator for the King of Fiori," he said before chuckling at the girl's bewildered expression. "I have gotten a lot stronger since I left. Plus, it was the easiest way to guarantee that I had the resources and information to get back to my family and establish a way back and forth." "Back and forth?" Levi questioned with a small smile. "Yeah, after all I have you guys as well as my other friends here, and I just can't abandon you all, not again at least," he said with a slightly remorseful smile. "Plus, she would kill everyone that got between me and her," he said under his breath. Luckily no one heard him. They continued like that for a while, trading stories back and forth until Naruto got a call. Naruto, come fast, the king has something to tell us, Koan said over the lacrimia. Understood. The call ended and Levi had a small but sad smile on her face. So I guess this is goodbye for now. Naruto frowned before creating another golden ripple and pulling out 2 communication lacrimia. This will let you call me anywhere on this continent. With this, Levi smiled and her and poor Ryusuke sent him off. The end.
Watch daily, exclusive, uncensored lemon fanfictions featuring Naruto, Deku, Issei, Ichigo, and many other anime characters. Available only on my Patreon. Link is in the description.